So I was asked to talk about some of the books that influenced my own path. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do this once a month on the last day of, or last Tuesday or Friday of the month, depending on which day it is. And so what I want to do is start right at the beginning and talk about Lobsang Rampa and a book called A Witch Alone by Marian Green. So let's have a look at that. First, the intro. Okay, so Lobsang Rampa. Now, if anybody's familiar with Lobsang Rampa, you're probably wondering why I'm talking about him on this channel, because he is considered to be a fraud, or was considered to be a fraud. But the same can be said about a lot of other people, including Crowley to some degree, but also Carlos Castaneda. But I don't think I don't think people should focus on whether he was actually telling the truth about his life or not. What's in his books can be quite valuable. And the reason I'm talking about Lobsang Rampa is because when I was 10 years old, it was a month before I turned 11, we actually immigrated to South Africa from England. I was born in Coventry. And I was a very shy child. I was bullied a lot in school and things like that. But when we came here, I had no friends. It was a new country. It was all strange. And, being the shy child I found it extremely difficult to fit in. And so for the first year or two, maybe 3 years even, what I often did was I would go from school to the local library and I'd spend time there until I could go home. Now, in the library I discovered the supernatural section and the occult section. Now, bear in mind I was 12 years old, but in that section I discovered Lobsang Rampa books, and I completely consumed them. It opened me up to this other world that was just absolutely incredible and amazing. And that's what actually started me on this whole journey, really. So whether Lobsang Rampa was a fraud or not, I really don't give a shit. His books were incredibly valuable to me, and they got me through some really dark times as a young youth. So Lobsang Rampa, he wrote 20 books altogether. I've got a few of his books, but I try to do every time I see one in a second-hand bookshop, I actually just grab it. These are excellent. His first book was The Third Eye, which is said to be his main, or his best book actually. But unfortunately I don't have The Third Eye. I thought I did, but I don't know, maybe I loaned it to somebody. I do that often. So Lobsang Rampa was actually born Cyril Henry Hoskin in Plimpton, Devon, and he was actually a plumber. Now, this wasn't actually Lobsang Rampa. The story that he tells is that he was very depressed. He was married in adult life, and he was very depressed, and he was actually considering taking his own life and just ending everything. And he was contacted by a Tibetan Llama called Lobsang Rampa. The way he was contacted was telepathically, through dreams and things like that. And they came to an agreement that Lobsang Rampa would transmigrate his soul into the body of Cyril, and then continue his life and write books about Tibetan Buddhism and things like that. Now, obviously this seems a bit far-fetched for a lot of people. Transmigration has been spoken about and written about in texts quite a lot, so it's not that it's unheard of, but you know, to transmigrate into the body of a plumber in Plympton, Devon, you might think that the guy was trying to just sensationalize his own life, really. But consider the fact that this was a plumber in Devon, in England, and he started writing books, and he wrote 20 books about Tibetan Buddhism. And I mean, the Dalai Lama was questioned about it, and he says that it's all fiction and just craziness, really. But he did also admit that it brought a lot of positive attention to Tibet, so it's good for him. But you'll find a lot of the books are a story, really. It's a story about his life, the trials and tribulations that he went through, the invasion of China into Tibet and things like that. So a lot of it is stories and possibly a lot of fiction, but amongst all of it is a lot of valuable information about spiritual practices. So I would definitely suggest the books, especially if you're starting out, because, as I say, I mean, maybe it was just because I was a 12-year-old kid, but the fascination is just, it just grabs you, it takes you in, it really does open your eyes to something completely unbelievable and crazy and insane, but at the same time so plausible and magical. So, you know, if you are starting out and you're just interested in something different, then I would say get hold of some Rampa books. His biggest problem was, let me just find it, this book, Living with the Llama. Now, he had a Siamese cat called Mrs. Fifi Grey Whiskers, and he used to communicate telepathically a lot with Mrs. Fifi Grey Whiskers. And this book is actually the story of the cat told to him, Lobsang Rampa, and put into a book format. So it's all about the cat's experience living with a Tibetan Llama. And obviously it got the most criticism when this came out. And it actually forced him and his wife and his cat to move to Canada. This came out in 1964. So soon after that they moved to Canada, just to try and get away from all the publicity and craziness that came up in his life. But he carried on writing, and he continued writing. As I say, he wrote 20 books at the end, and he died in 1981. But yeah, whether he's a fraud or not, as I say, I really don't give a shit. There's really some really valuable and interesting stuff in these books, and I would recommend them. Just keep in mind that, you know, a lot of the information might just be fictional, but, you know, especially something like The Cave of the Ancients. Have I got that one? Let me check. Have I got Cave of the Ancients? Yes, I do. Cave of the Ancients. You know, there's a lot of stuff in here which could definitely be fictional, but up to you. Now, the second book I want to talk about is A Witch Alone by Marian Green. And the reason I'm bringing this one up is because, you know, after I was, you know, being 12, I had to get through school and everything else. But in my early 20s is where I really started practicing magic. And I started with witchcraft. Now, Marian Green was my launch into the whole thing, and specifically A Witch Alone. It's basically a manual, a program that you can work through, and it covers a 13-month or 13-moon program. So it takes you from beginning to end, and it gives you exercises to do. It's got some book suggestions in there. They are really incredible books. So each chapter ends with the exercises and the book suggestions. But yeah, it's some really good stuff. What I was appreciative of the most was that it wasn't wicker. So fortunately, I didn't know about Scott Cunningham and Silver Ravenwolf. Not that there's anything particularly wrong with them. Okay, a bit more wrong with Silver Ravenwolf. Scott Cunningham is okay. I did find him to be quite valuable as well, but it wasn't that book red wicker that a lot of people started with back then, and a lot of people still start with nowadays. Marian Green goes into traditional witchcraft, and she is very well educated. But the book itself, as I say, goes through this 13 moon program that you can work through and get educated about different things in witchcraft from your god and goddess. She goes into discussing the god and goddess quite in depth, and also going into Pan, Koinos, Hernes, and all of the different gods, and Ea, Bina, and Gei from the goddess perspective. But then she goes into the seasons, she goes into circle construction, and it really is a fantastic introduction into witchcraft. It's probably one of the best ones I've actually ever come across, and it doesn't get bogged down with Wicca itself, or particularly British traditional witchcraft, which can get quite involved with ghost roads and things like that. So it's kind of light but serious at the same time, and she covers everything from Dion Fortune's writing, mention of Crowley's hymn to Pan, so all the old masters and people like that. So if you are interested in witchcraft, I would definitely recommend A Witch Alone. It's been in reprint quite a few times now since it first came out. And that's it, really. So I don't think I'm very good at book reviews, so forgive me if this was a terrible start to the whole thing, but I'll keep trying. And yeah, so that's it for today. Cheers.